Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callus. We're coming out about 2.5 hours late tonight. Just a busy day. I had plans to do something different than what I'm going to do tonight. Reason being is, one, I have a pretty interesting story. And interesting might be a stretch. Just say a factual story of something that happened to me today. And secondarily, normally I would be talking about a book or a movie or something like that. But over the course of the last 2 days, I've listened to a number of different podcasts, and there was a recurring theme. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it was something I picked up on. And I want to take a couple of key points out of it and elaborate. And I'm going to kind of tie the two together, both the story and the observation. Before I do that, let me remind you, the best thing you can do for me, the best thing you can do to show support or help is to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Showing it up on the social media as a share or a like is a big help. Gets it out there. Following or subscribing boosts the number, helps us work past the algorithm issues. As you know, I have a page and a group on Facebook. I am a pro at Gab. I drop in at MeWe. In addition to that, I'm on pretty much every podcatcher there is out there. I'm hosted at Podbean. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple iTunes. I'm at the Google Store. I'm at the FM. You can find me on Amazon. I'm everywhere that I can be to be available. Now, I should also point out, for the foreseeable future, or certainly in the past, I've still been showing up at YouTube, and it is just the audio file. At some point, maybe I'll make true videos, but for right now, that's what we're doing. Okay. Here we go, on with the program. So I'm certain if you've been following for any period of time, you know I locally live in McKinney, Texas. As a matter of fact, I'm locally involved. I partake in a local church. I show up at local events. And believe it or not, I'm quite active in the Calhoun County Republican Party. So suffice it to say, the podcast is probably me times 2. I'm a little more sedate in person, only because you can only be amped up so long. And honestly, I have a radio show, if you will, for a reason. I kind of like a little bit of anonymity. I don't do this necessarily to brag or talk about myself, but more just to talk about issues that are concerning or different things that are going on that you might want to know about. And of course, the whole show does key on the fact that it's my opinion, my understanding, my thoughts on the matter, which is why it's called According to Callus. But it is, it goes both ways. It's flattering that when people hear your name, they know who you are, but it's also very nice to be able to just wander around and do your life without people knowing you. So in the anonymity mode, if you will, at work, the day job, if you will, pays my bills, allows me a certain amount of flexibility so that I can do these things after hours or before hours, whatever the situation may be. My work truck broke down. Now, I don't want to get into any specifics only because I'm not necessarily looking to make it any easier, but I was essentially on my way home. Hold that. Sorry, I had a little glitch there. Got you all fixed up now. So, work trucks broke down, and the last thing you want to do is get hit while you're stuck on the side of the road. So I, pop the hood, start flagging traffic so that they don't run in the back of the work truck. Doing everything that I've always been taught to do. The only thing I didn't have was the flashers because I had a dead battery. But nevertheless, flagging overcomes that. Now, if you live in the city, you're used to people generally ignoring or driving by. if you grew up in a small town, which I guess the town I grew up in was not small per se. I mean, by McKinney standards, it was smaller, but it was directly attached to a much larger city. So it was kind of like you're in the city the whole time. Just a different name on it. Now, I guess not unlike if you lump Plano, Frisco, McKinney all together, right? So that being said, I was very pleased. I had no fewer than 4 people, holler at me, "You okay? Everything all right?" Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I had one guy, I guess, park around the corner and walk over and say, "Hey, do you want me to give you a hand moving the truck?" I'm like, "No, man, it's dead and no steering." So best to just leave it. "Okay, very good. Thanks." I thought that was great. Couple people, as they're driving by, "You okay? You need anything?" "No, I'm good. Tow truck's coming. Thanks. Appreciate it." I mean, I even had somebody, ask me, "Well, I got a cop car. We'll get to that in a second," that pulled up behind me and put the lights on to keep me from getting hit or get my truck from hit. And then the coolest thing is, guy's driving down the road, pulls over to the right, and then backs up in front of my truck. And I'm like, who is that? Because I don't recognize the vehicle. The guy recognized mine because he lives down the street from me. He goes, "Hey, man. Hey, neighbor, how you doing? I was just coming to check on you. I recognize." Wow, that's pretty cool. "Hey, no, I'm good. Thanks. That's my tow truck right there. Appreciate you stopping. No, we're good." "Okay, I just wanted," this is a guy that I see on occasion. Wave, say hi, exchange pleasantries. Certainly not we're barbecuing, in the front yard or nothing, but that was pretty cool. So, okay, one last piece of this puzzle. So the officer who came, he's like, "You all right?" "Yeah." "You got a tow truck on the way?" "I sure do, sir." "How long are you going to be?" "Well, they're telling me about 25 minutes. "Okay, no problem. I can hang for a little bit, just so you know. If it gets too long, I'm going to have to call a different record." "Oh, no problem. I totally get it." So he goes out, he's chilling in the police vehicle, probably monitoring radio and whatever else. Because, if they get a more important call, they got a blitz. Totally get that too. So he's sitting there watching the traffic. So I go by and I just told him, because the tow truck got there now, and "Hey, officer, I want you to know, I really appreciate this. I know this is like a little BS thing that nobody really considers in the scheme of everything you do, but I just want you to know I appreciate it. You're protecting my vehicle." "Sure, happy to do it. Thanks. Have a good day, man." I mean, again, why am I telling this story? Why is this important? Because I know there's a certain, thing that you pick up on when I'm talking about all the different issues and things going on. It'd be very easy to read into everything that I say as being always negative, always talking down. I don't want you to ever think that that's always and all I ever do. So, I mean, this is a good experience. This is kind of nice because we are a big town now. I mean, there's 210,000 people in McKinney proper. There's another 15,000 over in Frisco proper, and then another 100,000 or whatever down in Allen. So we're sitting on 500,000 people directly north of Plano, which has got 350 to 400,000 people in it by itself. In the big four, we're sitting at 800,000 plus people. Maybe 900,000 if I could remember how to do my math right now. There's 1.2 million people in Collin County, and we still had that. So, I mean, that's encouraging. That's a good sign. I mean, it gives a little bit of a down-home feel. I realize this is Texas. People are a little different here. Even with all the relocated Yankees, there's a certain Southern hospitality still at play here. And it's encouraging. And I just want to say a shout out, a thank you to the folks that checked in on me, even though I don't have any idea who they are, and you have no idea that I know, I didn't take their license plate or anything, but, I noticed who was checking in on me. It was nice. They don't know me from Adam, except for the neighbor guy. But again, that was really cool. So I wanted to say something encouraging, something nice, something that you can all think positive things about when you think about McKinney or Collin County. There are still people that are checking up on people on the side of the road. Now, I will tell you, I've done this from time to time. It's rather difficult to pull over when you're on the freeway, and most of the time that's where I see stuff. But I mean, if I see somebody and I can stop or check on them, I'll roll the window down. Hey, are you okay? Do I need to call anybody? It's just a simple, easy, common courtesy. It's not that hard. And of course, I'm not going to claim I do it all the time because sometimes it's rather impractical. If you're in a hurry or whatever else, I get it. But if you've got the time, I mean, I think it's just a sign of good faith. It's community. All right, now here's the second part. I guess we'll call that part A, if you will. Part B. So in the series of podcasts I was talking about, I picked up on a common stream. And now you've probably heard me talk a little bit about this in the past as far as building community. One of the things that was brought up is the fierce independence, right? Everybody wants to be independent, free, able to be their own person. Now, look, I kind of have a pretty heavy libertarian strain and streak, and even a long period of my life where I self-identified as that. So I get that. I grok it. It's understood. You want to be your own man. You want to be your own woman. You want to be able to call your own shots and be free and independent. I get it. There's also, family. You want to have your family that you're a part of, that you communicate with, and that family, depending on how generous you are, you might extend to extend family or church members or small groups that you belong to. This is where it really matters. This is where the difference is. Now, so one of the guys I was listening to was Doug Wilson, and he was referring to the American culture, if you will, as if it was a bag full of BBs. They're all independent moving pieces, and they're very easy to contort and push and whatever else. And he said, and again, it was yesterday, I think, when I was listening to it. So I don't necessarily have all the details spot on, but just track with me here. And he's talked about this before. I've heard him use this analogy before. So it's not. So if you get a pillowcase and you fill it full of BBs, it's solid until you push on it and it moves. And he likened the hyper-independence or the hyper-independent culture of America as that sack of BBs and even Greece, so that they move even more freely. And so that culture can be manipulated and moved, in his opinion, because there's nothing coalesced. There's nothing holding it together. It can be manipulated more or less at will. And you don't have to worry about the outliers because you get the bulk to just do. Now, if you follow this analogy and I don't know, what are you going to put in a bunch of BBs to make them more solid? Think about that. So to me, I didn't hear where he went with that, to be honest. But to me, if you look at it from the standpoint that if you put the BBs in something else that adds friction or adds cohesiveness, let's call it peanut butter. Peanut butter sticky. You throw all your BBs in the peanut butter, and now they move, but they move together with a group, and they pull in, or even magnetize them, if you will. So they're much harder to manipulate and move. They move in a larger chunk, and they resist that movement if they're magnetized or in peanut butter, if you will, for lack of a better term. They're stuck together, and they hold more firmly. He talks about this as atomization, right? Everybody's so independent. They're not concerned about their neighbor. They're not concerned about other members of their family, and they can be easily pushed aside. They can be easily dealt with as a single individual. So this is where community comes in, right? This is where you have the idea that I might be a one, but I'm part of a many. I might be a one, but I'm joined to a few or several. And if you mess with me, you're messing with them as well. The brotherhood, if you will. Military guys have it. Law enforcement has it. Firefighters have it. I mean, anybody where you're working with them together, you spend a lot of time together, and potentially their lives are in your hands, you build this. It's a natural thing, much like your family or your extended family. But in the atomized society, again, I give credit to Doug Wilson. I'm not sure where he got it from, but I heard it from him. We don't have that because we're so fluid. We're moving around. We spread out. Now, I ended up in Texas courtesy of extended family. And I'm proud to be here and I'm happy to be here, but I would have never made it without my family. And I should be more clear, it's my wife's family predominantly, but it's my family now. I mean, I've been married to my wife for a long time. Pretty sure they see me as more than just, oh, that's her husband. You know what I mean? So it's a family. It's tight. It's knit. We look out for each other. We protect each other. That's the way it should be. And you should be able to find that in other groups, whether it's your church group, whether it's your, book club, whatever. You build that culture where you're looking at each other and trusting each other and dependent upon each other. And when I mean dependent, just dependent on each other's trust and familial aspects there. Not that you can't, make your sandwich without your neighbor coming over and doing it for you. I mean, get real, right? Okay. So let's extrapolate this just a little bit more. So when we're talking about this hyper independence mindset, and everybody wants to be a solo act, right? So I've talked about in the past where I'm a fan of post-apocalyptic fiction. But what's always interesting to me is when you have this solo story, right? You've got this guy, maybe he's got a dog, or maybe you got a young girl, they end up by themselves, but they're really never anything until they meet up with somebody else. It's kind of the slow dredge of life, of trying to get by. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary on PBS about the guy that moves to Alaska. I wish I could remember what his name is. But he basically builds his cabin by himself. He builds all of his tools. I mean, he does everything. But he lives in basically virtual complete isolation for, 9 or 10 months out of the year. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe a month of that would be pretty nice, but I don't know that I could do an entire winter in Alaska by myself. I just don't know that I have that much solitude in me. Maybe you do. Maybe that's your thing. And I don't remember what all the details were. And I think he did have some family, but his wife had died, if I remember correctly. The kids were grown. So he went to go just do this on his own. Moving to Alaska, builds all this stuff, and just kind of lives out his last of his life out there. Now, in one hand, that's pretty exciting. That's pretty interesting. But I mean, after you've accomplished all of that and you sit home by yourself, I mean, I can understand being lost in your thoughts, drifting off in a la la land for a few nights. By la la land, I just mean your own little world. Not implying anything negative here. But I don't know how you do it. That's what, you have family for that. Man was not designed to live alone. Man should not be alone. I mean, it clearly states that in Genesis. Now, maybe you've got that oddball out there. You got, the odd person that is better off by themselves. They're just not social at all. I get it. But as an individual, you're much better off when you have a family, when you have somebody close around you, when you have somebody that you can trust, that you can build with. So when you look at our culture, when you look at how things factor together, and then you throw in my little vignette, if you will, my work vehicle being broke down, all is not lost. There are people out there that are checking on people that they don't even know, that they're not so callous, not so, not cold-hearted, maybe. I maybe shouldn't use my own last name. And come on, it's a pun. It was funny. But they're not so self-centered, so soloized that they don't realize that, hey, maybe that person needs help. Maybe that person needs a little something. Maybe I should check on them because I have the time. I have the ability to maybe be help. Now, to be clear, if you do that all day, every day, you will be burned out. You'll have nothing left. There are so many people that need and want things that you can never, ever satisfy them. right? When you build a community based on the idea where everybody is needy or everybody wants something, you're never done. It's never enough. So the second podcast I listened to was John Harris's, and he was talking to his brother and his father. And I'm actually going to probably spin that off and talk a little bit more about that on tomorrow, and I guess make it the Friday show, not quite in its entirety. But one of the things that I took away from that is the book they were talking about. Excuse me. The book they were talking about dealt a lot with the idea of conservative culture. But it also referenced the idea that other worldviews actually do get things right, or some things right. And maybe we need to give credit where credit is due. And I think that's a fair point. And I haven't read the book yet, so I'm not going to necessarily talk about the book, but I was going to just briefly talk about their reflections and what they said about it, because I thought it was interesting, because all three read the book and they took different notes and whatever else, and they had different impressions. One of the things that I took away from what their commentary was is the idea that there are certain things that quote unquote conservatives don't deal with or don't talk about because for whatever age we're in right now, it's been written out of the program. It doesn't count anymore. And I don't know if that's because of the hyper individualism or if it's because everybody's been programmed away from that. But the idea that they settled on was a community or a small culture, or the community, the culture of the community around you, more accurately. So they're tied together, right? So again, if you're walking down the road and you're in a small town, there's a pretty good chance you're going to run across somebody that knows you. And even if they don't know you by name, they maybe know you by sight, or they know your family, and you have this built-in interaction, right? This familiarity, if you will. And that's hard to accomplish when you're in a big city. I imagine it'd be a big challenge in a place like Dallas, but here in McKinney, even at just shy of 250,000 people, we still have some of that. And that's encouraging. That's a good thing. And I guess that's why I tied these two things together, and I kind of threw out the plan for the day, because even when things happen that don't turn out to be a lot of fun or are not exciting, there are positive things out of it. There are, a net gain, if you will. And I don't know who to give credit to for that. And I don't even know that it's necessarily credit to be given. I think it's just the existing culture that has survived the massive waves of migration to North Texas. That people are still interested and still paying attention to what's going on around them, and they have a interest in their community. And I think this is a good thing. It's encouraging. One of the fears, one of the things that I've always taken away from talking to the locals or the people that were here for their whole lives, back in the day, we had 15,000 people in McKinney, and we all didn't have a fit when you moved here, and now you guys get 200,000 here, and you're pitching a fit because they're throwing up more apartment complexes. And, what if we had done that when you all moved here? That's a fair point. It really is. I think it'd be fair to say that those that moved early and moved into homes and kind of were spread out and in amongst the culture here adopted and adapted to what was here. Those of us that followed wanted to come here to become part of Texas, become part of the culture here. My fear is the massive waves coming from California or New York or places like that. They don't want to join what's here. They want to bring their stuff with them. Or the folks that are moving in the massive quantities of this transient apartment-like life, they're not interested in what's going on around them. They're just here to get what they want. They get what they need. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it doesn't help your culture. It doesn't help your community, in my opinion, long term. And that's one of the things they actually talk about in their review of the book. So I'll return back on Friday. We'll spend a little time delving into what their communication, what their takeaways was from that book, and I'll reveal the title as well tomorrow. So tonight we're going to cut a little short, end on the high note. Shout out to City McKinney's police department for doing the piddly little thing, but protecting property and lives, which actually is their job. But this was nothing romantic or exciting, just blocking traffic. Hey, but it matters. It matters. Those things do matter. People forget about those little things. You know, we got a car that burns on 75, or we got a murder down the street somewhere. Those are the things that get attention, or people are attracted to go look at. That's the big deal. But this little stuff, this is what keeps things working. With that, this has been According to Callus, and I will see you on the other side.